Mohrta is a first-person shooter released in 2025 by Scumhead and Oseal for the PC.
This isn't working.
And is available through Steam and GOG. And it's not over a decade old, so why am I reviewing it? Because I saw the trailer a year ago and fell in love. And Lord knows, I have the time. The game is built on the GZ Doom engine, and that has some quirks we'll talk about later. And truthfully, I loved this game. Now, as for spoilers, while this is not a spoiler-free review, I will keep it to a minimum. I'll talk in detail about the opening level, about some mechanics and characters. If I go into anything spoiler-heavy, I will give fair warning and a chapter skip. But if you want a spoiler-free review, then let me ask you this. Do you want a game with fast-paced shootouts, slow-paced exploration through a gorgeous series of worlds, combat built around avoiding damage, an extensive selection of weapons to wield, and 20 bosses to fight, some of which are topless, and one that's bottomless? If that's a yes, then this is the game for you. Okay, enough fucking rambling, onto the gameplay. We start with this beautiful menu and haunting music. Hitting new game takes us into a mission briefing. We are a Generation 7 Hayward of Project Living Dead. Our mission is to recover a Generation 1 Hayward named Avlan, somewhere within the town of Kozanoda, using whatever means necessary. We ride into town on horseback, and the game begins. As with a lot of old style shooters, the default FOV is 90. I'm a bit freaky and I like to set mine to 85. And after a few levels I set my renderer to Vulkan, which put an end to some minor frame rate issues. The game comes up with some basic tutorial pop-ups. Usually not a fan of pop-up tutorial boxes, but these are short, to the point and illustrated. No complaints here. It's to teach brand new players the control scheme. WASD to move, space to jump. I hit Q just to see what it does. Ah, that's my mana potion, which is now empty.
What a fucking bozo.
As I make my way to the town of Kozanoda, I'm attacked by spiny-looking alien bandits and their dogs, and already I'm a fan of the beautiful environment and the ambient creatures. Things are familiar enough to be recognisable, but alien enough to be strange. For now, we have a sword, a revolver, and an empty mana potion. The revolver has a regular single shot attack and an alternate attack that unloads all 6 chambers in rapid fire. Reloading the gun is very satisfying as you just replace the entire cylinder. The sword also has a very impressive alternate fire where you swing an arc of red death towards a foe, and they explode spectacularly. The enemies in the opening level are simple enough, some that rush to melee you and a ranged shooting bandit. The game starts by introducing them slowly and gradually pushes you to deal with all 3 types at once. The gunplay is simple but satisfying, with the most important part being that when I pull the trigger, the bullet goes where I am aiming. They're responsive and do what I want when I want them to. However, there are some caveats to both accuracy and responsiveness depending on the weapon, but that's part of the charm for each weapon. Further towards the town, I find a dying guard who tells us the bandits came for their dynamite stockpiles, but also that they were hungry. Yeah, I could smell barbecue on the way over here, little bandit cookout going on. Throw another shrimp on a barbie for... Oh, I hate people that do this. No veggie option. As I leave to go find a more lively party, a small squeaking doll frees itself from the grasp of a dead villager before leaping into our hand. This is our healing doll. No, I'm not making this up. Mohrta is that wonderful mix of dark fiction and peculiar whimsy. You might notice the HUD is quite sparse, and that is because you have a lot of information in one corner of the screen. The red bar represents your health. You can take a decent amount of damage before you die, but it's tailored around avoiding damage as your health will not regenerate. You can only restore your health by squeezing your doll, or by visiting a Pilgrim shrine. More on those in a bit. Above your health bar you'll notice little buttons with red stitching through them. These are doll's eyes and they represent your healing charges left. You'll start with just 1 healing charge and gain more as you play the game. If you try to heal without any charges, your doll will let you know.
Not happening.
The green orbs beneath the health bar represent mana. Mana is used to fuel alternate attacks, which is nice because most alternate attacks deal increased damage or provide some utility. Because mana is a limited resource, you can't spam these moves endlessly, meaning you can't meta the gunplay, but also enemies will drop mana, so you're not left without your power moves for very long. It says stay with me guys, I realise I'm droning on, but it's important because all of this information is neatly packed away in one HUD element. Look how much screen space I have, I could watch Farscape in the top corner.
They're coming to kill you, John.
It's so clean it would give World of Warcraft players nightmares. In long fights, like boss fights, you can rely on your mana gourd, the potion I used by accident earlier. You'll see how much mana you have left in the gourd by how full the big green orb is. You can also break pots to regain mana, as well as finding ammo in those pots to replenish your supplies. I'll chat about what the colours represent later, but suffice to say, these strange looking plants that drop from enemies and broken pots are your ammunition. You'll be stuffing big red peppers, hanging blue crystals and green coffee beans in your guns. As for how often you'll need to keep an eye on your ammo count, in truth, it's the same as with any shooter. Once you've had the weapon for a bit, you'll begin to get a sense for when the weapon will run low. Weirdly, the exception to this I found to be the shotgun, which always tripped me up as to how quickly I'd ran out of ammo. I've been shooting my way through Kozanoda for a while now, restoring order like I'm Charles Bronson.
We're still in the fucking car, what's it to you?
And I'm really gelling with the art style, the level design and how it plays with elevation. It's quite linear at present, but it still has plenty of room to move about in each space. At the edge of this canyon town I see a dark mine entrance, and wow, he wasn't kidding about dynamite. I cautiously work my way into the mine tunnels, finding a locked off area that requires a key. So I go the other way and there's enemy placement. I see you, doggo, you won't get a jump on me. After a little excursion through this lovely cave, I find the mine key, open the door and start my way deeper into the— No, you son of a bitch! Bastard! Then I approach a truly dark tunnel. The game tells me some areas will be too dark to see, so you should summon your Lantern Beast Bat to light the path ahead. Lantern Beast Bat. Look, I don't know what to tell you. Some of the shit in this game is weirder than Lex.
Who are you? Thanks. It's really great to be here.
But it's a crazy fun way to add a lantern. I will not complain. Tapping the Z key will cause your Lantern Beast to light up for a little while. When the light fades, just tap Z to reignite him. It's cool, but it does have an issue relating to the GZ Doom engine, and I won't lie, it looks bad. You see, the game's lighting itself is actually gorgeous. I know I'm skipping ahead to a visuals point, but it really is. The areas have amazing lighting, and the lantern beasts work very well at putting out soft shaded light, illuminating areas on your level and below you. Unfortunately, there seems to be a limitation where areas above the plane you're standing on do not receive that light as they should. It's such a shame, and truly does a disservice to the art, area design and world that has been built for Mohrta. It might put people off, but I have played through the entire game now, and truthfully, the areas where this was noticeable are few and far between. The game features a few dark zones, let's call them, where you rely on the Lantern Beast, but this never looks as bad as it does in this first level, which is a crying shame. And I know it's not an objective viewpoint, but I think it's worth looking past. I love this little cave area, where the water pushes you along gently, just to show it has a mild current. This leads to the first boss, Igoro the Bandit Warlord, and compared to the other bandits, he's just built different.
Dude, we've been through this, okay? I'm cultivating mass. Stop saying that. You are not cultivating mass.
This guy is charging at me with axes, leaping with a little area of effect ring, throwing dynamite at me that is telegraphed really well because he reaches for the dynamite strapped to his body before throwing it at you. I approve of that. It's a little detail that lets the player know to be ready, not be forced to react when they see the dynamite hurling towards them. They already know it's coming. It's the first boss and designed to ease you into the systems, which it does well. It's encouraging the player to retreat from an enemy while shooting back, as well as dodge. It's doing a good job of teaching new players. In the aftermath, we can see it appears he was gorging himself on the people of Kozanoda. They were hungry. Stepping into the darkness ahead, the Haywood is pulled into some sort of starry tunnel, transported away, and we find ourselves in the Metronexus. A bustling marketplace filled with colourful traders, customers and entertainers. This place is just an explosion of creativity and serves as the player's main hub between levels. I appreciate the fact that it's both the game's hub and a hub of activity. Elder Moke explains to us this is a place that links various dimensions together. He also senses that we are Mohrta, a hunter in his tongue, and that we should seek Loom in the orrery. I'll have a look around the town first, as I just got here, and one thing becomes clear very quickly. I'm going to need some fucking money. This is a good time to mention that despite some general noises being made by NPCs when you interact with them, dialogue is unvoiced. Doesn't bother me, it's good dialogue. I talked to Barago, who is like Aslan if he was a character in Blade Runner, some badass lion with a hooker. I am referring, of course, to his smoking pipe. He offers to upgrade my mana gourd if I bring him crystallized mana. Then there is Rinri the doll maker, who is also a doll with ample arms for stitching and needlework. Adorable. Rinri will upgrade our living doll if we bring her doll eyes. Over in this corner is Yoruga, a drunk self-important princess who thinks we're their servant and offers to melt down weapons we don't want into strange ores. Lastly, we have this big mech smith named Hitch who is of course some sort of locust imp. This game is fucking crazy. Hitch will upgrade our weapons and armor if we bring her strange ore. I'll talk more about all these systems as we go, but I just want to show my appreciation for how easy all of this is to access, yet how esoteric it all looks. In a lot of modern games, this would all be done in a menu. Hit X to melt down weapons, allocate talent points to upgrade mana. In Mohrta, when you want to upgrade your mana gourd, you take your crystal to the blue line. It'll sort you out. I'd decide to follow Elder Moke's advice and proceed to Loom at the orrery. She tells us Avlan is beyond the Black Gate, and we'll need to recover runes from different dimensions to open it back up again. Think of the orrery as the portal chamber to access different dimensions and levels. We can return here at any time using Pilgrim stones. Loom suggests we begin with the Garden Grave, but you can go to any dimension you choose. Each dimension has 3 levels, and you have to start at the first level initially, but the game is designed so you can save your progress, return to the Metronexus, and then go back to the level again. Doing so will spawn you at the start of the level, but there are ways to help deal with that. You'll want to return not just to move on to the next dimension, but to upgrade your gear. So I choose the first dimension stone and walk to the Garden Grave. And I am met with beautiful greenery, ivory details and towering trunks. But I quickly learn the seeds planted in this garden are bones. Oh hey, nice statue though. Let's talk about the dodge, because I imagine you might be thinking, hey, this game is inspired by Dark Souls. It's true, nobody ever dodged before Dark Souls.
Let's dance, boys.
But in seriousness, there's some similarities and inspirations, but beyond that, Mohrta is oozing with originality. Text on the screen is very Elden-like, and Mohrta loves its shortcuts, but the game stands strongly on its own, without any comparison to these games. Besides, the dodge in Mohrta is more like Grim Dawn's evade. Mohrta's combat is built around avoiding damage, and the dodge is one way of doing that. It's instantly responsive. Hitting the key will make you dash in whatever direction you're moving. What I really like are the directional swoosh lines that change depending on your motion. While dodging, you will have a certain amount of invulnerability frames or iframes. These are frames of animation where you can't take damage, and they're a little generous towards the end of the dodge. But I think that's perfect for a first-person perspective. It isn't quite the same as rolling around like a panda where you can rotate your camera around you freely. It will dodge out of anything. Projectiles, energy waves, melee attacks. You just have to be fast enough or early enough to use it. It also puts distance between yourself and an enemy, so if you see the attack coming, even if your iframes have ended, you've dodged out of the way of the attack. Lastly, there is a very brief cooldown after a dodge, before you can dodge again. You can't just spam the button and be indestructible. The idea is to dodge and weave. In some instances, it became necessary for me to jump between dodges to counter an enemy attack pattern. Getting used to the dodge is required, but perfecting your use of the dodge, well, there's some leeway there. The game is well designed enough that, like Elden Ring, yes I said it, you can decide how much of a leg up you have. The armor upgrades will mean you can take more of a beating. You still can't face tank bosses paladin style, but it's giving you a way to increase survivability. However, at the cost of having less choice in upgrading your weapons, because both upgrades use strange ore, a finite resource. I didn't upgrade my armor because I quite enjoy getting stomped on. Little addendum here, but on my second playthrough I used the all weapons code, so it's like a new game plus, but opted to upgrade my healing doll as little as possible. Doing some of the later fights with just one healing charge makes this an entirely different game.
I'm in danger!
I've been exploring the garden for a while now and coming up against a whole host of enemies who want to kill me, when in this lovely clearing with a lantern tree I notice a figure kneeling in pain. I decide to take a little look around first and spot a lever. This lowers a ladder to unlock a shortcut to the statue I saw earlier. Nice. I let the ladder down and approach to see that this is another Haywood. Upon drawing closer, he stops kneeling in pain and rises up, ready to attack. This is a mini-boss, and even this has its own unique mechanics, but what I love most of all is they're similar to our own attacks. He has a revolver that fires a spread of dodgeable bullets, and a sword that also cuts in a swath of red energy. After a well-fought battle, he goes down, falling on his own sword rather than let us deliver the killing blow. What a sore fucking loser. I continue to progress before reaching this chamber, where, after just about surviving against a group of animated bones, I am jumped by a bone dog and killed. I respawn back at the last autosave, but to my surprise, it isn't when I lowered the ladder, it's much earlier.
What a fucking bozo.
You see, the game saves when saving at Pilgrim stones, and I believe area transitions, but don't quote me. At no other times will the game save. Pilgrim stones are dotted throughout the levels and they serve a few purposes. First and foremost, they are your save points. You can only manually save the game by interacting with a Pilgrim stone, and I recommend you do so whenever you're at one. You have 4 save slots, and they'll all be listed as autosave with a time code, hence why I assumed lowering the ladder would trigger an autosave. The saves get replaced in order of top to bottom, and there is no option to have multiple runs saved separately. But I don't see why you'd want to do that except in very special circumstances. Pilgrim stones also serve as a warp point back to the Metronexus. Interacting with one will not only restore your health, but your consumable charges as well. The level design makes really good use of opening shortcuts back to your initial Pilgrim stone, so the areas aren't full of these. They're strategically placed to create tension. The further away from your last Pilgrim stone, the more you know one wrong move could set you back. The only place I found the distance back to a Pilgrim stone was truly obnoxious was in the Veriglass College. It's a gorgeous but very big level, and really there could have been a second Pilgrim stone in the octagonal courtyard. But with this one exception, Pilgrim stones are thoughtfully positioned. They're balanced to be a part of the gameplay loop, and unless you really forget to save, it's good. So anyway, after I died in the garden, I have to work my way back through the caves and fight the Haywood again, falls on his sword, fucking loser, lower the ladder and run all the way to the Pilgrim stone and then save. I make it all the way back through to the point where I died, this time slaying the bone charger, and what do I see behind the altar that was just out of sight before I died? A save point. If that isn't the most Souls-like thing, I don't know what is. Ahead is a little courtyard and an open area which leads into a cutscene. A mysterious Haywood turns to talk to me, delivering some cryptic dialogue before ripping off their cloak to reveal she is in fact a tall grey wolf with big tits. Okay. I'm going to have a hard time beating the furry allegations after this, I know it. The evidence has been mounting these past few videos, and I'm trying not to address the snail trail. This is a good boss though. She does a cool double shotgun move, a spin kick, and she moves fast. I get cocky and she knocks me into the downward dog. I'll chat about bosses later, but for now I'll just say it's a good fight, and I do triumph. Gravely wounded, Julie, the Haywood hunter, falls into the sea. Wet dog. As I turn around, I see a spinning weapon, the trench gun. The first new weapon this game gives you is a shotgun. That's how I know it's a good game. Let's talk weapons. As I've said before, I am not a gun nut. Most of what I know comes from wrong game, sorry. I won't go into detail for all the weapons because there are so many in Mohrta, it's crazy. Every weapon in the game has a regular attack and a mana attack. Left click for regular, right click for spicy. They also have different mana costs, so you have some that can do their special move 6 times, and others might completely drain your mana orbs, just like these two. Your staple is of course the revolver. It's a simple weapon, dealing decent damage, perfectly accurate with a good rate of fire and an obscenely fast mana attack. Quick reload, no real downsides to this gun. It's made to be your signature sidearm and succeeds totally in that, and in many ways is the best sniping weapon you'll ever get. The bastard is your sword. You can just hold down attack to swing it and it does nice damage with decent range. The mana attack slings a crimson arc towards your crosshair. Good option for when you want to save bullets or for when someone gets too close. The game has other melee weapons, but in truth, melee put me at such a disadvantage in many instances. There are enemies that you can really stomp on with melee, and some boss phases where getting in sword attacks is just a no-brainer. But by and large, my advice is to pick one melee weapon and upgrade that one. Not because they're flat out bad, but because they are weapons that require investment to be useful in my opinion. What I will say is that I played through the game more than once, choosing to take the shield and sword next time, and I enjoyed that. After these initial two, you'll find new weapons, usually after defeating a boss, which is why it's a good idea to tackle the levels in order, as the weapons will help you deal with greater threats and bosses present on those later levels. I imagine on subsequent playthroughs you might consider picking an area to focus a different gun that you want first. The trench gun is the game's shotgun with a 4 shell capacity, and it comes with a tight spread. The trench gun is less a shotgun in the sense of hitting multiple targets, more dealing greater damage per shot. Best for getting right in someone's face to blast them, but I'm all about that, so no problems here. What I am fussed about, however, is that you have to fully reload the trench gun before you can start firing again. So if you're empty and want to just reload 1 shell to finish off an enemy, you'll find yourself locked into loading all 4. This is one of the only caveats to the responsiveness I mentioned earlier. You cannot interrupt a reload animation once it's started, which means if you need to heal, you can't. This has often locked me into chain dodging during fights because the Hayward Gen 7 is taking his sweet ass time reloading those shells. For every other gun, this is not an issue.
I don't feel so good.
Does it stop me loving the trench gun? No, because the fantasy of being a Terminator in full plate that refuses to stop reloading a shotgun even while he's being attacked is exactly what I am looking for in a game. What's the alternate mana fire on the trench gun? You swing the gun around before firing it for even more damage, and an enemy killed from this move will fucking explode. Game of the year. You may remember I also mentioned there was an accuracy caveat. While all the guns do go where you're aiming, they have varying degrees of accuracy. Enter Exhibit A, the Bone Riddler, a sort of submachine gun. It basically has no accuracy, so when I say the bullet goes where I'm aiming, it does, just this thing has a wider spread than fucking Psylocke. Look, you think this is bad? My friend has asked me to paint her a shirtless Leon Kennedy. How am I going to explain that sitting around the house? What I like about the Bone Riddler is its inherent low accuracy is offset by its mana attack, which fires a group of rounds together that home in on absolutely anything. It's like Gary Oldman's smart gun. So it's built for short range, but has some capacity for other situations. The Bone Riddler has lighter damage, which is understandable given its rate of fire, but it's still good at making sure enemies get their calcium. The Hive Launcher's primary attack is a big fuck-off grenade explosion, useful for taking out a large group of enemies or dealing some serious damage to one target. But I also loved its alternate fire. Instead of launching an explosive pod, it launches a hive egg. It hatches on landing and lets loose a little bug to fight your enemies. This can even be used to distract bosses, giving you time to focus fire on them. That's weapon utility right there. The bugs do okay damage, but they're more to control the enemy's attention. When upgraded, the damage is not only increased, but it spawns more eggs as well. The tarot cards, I'm about to make a name for myself here. What a load of fun these are. The basic attack is actually quite weak, but the Manor attack draws a random card to give yourself a blessing or a curse. Sometimes it will haste you, sometimes it will doom you, and sometimes it will just summon chickens. Each tarot card has a different texture to correspond to the buff, so you can actually recognise what they are when you draw them without any UI nonsense. However, you'll have to figure out what they are through trial and error. I am going to stop, because I will talk all day about the weapon selection, so I will quickly say the game has a very satisfying minigun and a good flamethrower. I know what I said, but I have to talk about the syringe, because it has one of the more creative mana attacks. By day, it's a mild-mannered fell flame launcher. By night, it's an area of effect beast. The regular attack is fun enough, passing through enemies and capable of damaging everything in its path, which I believe makes it unique in Mohrta, as other projectiles stop when they hit an entity. It's a flamethrower, of course it's fun.
My favourite.
But the mana attack plunges the syringe into the ground and injects a pool of crackling green energy. Now you have an area of effect around you that damages enemies. Finally, I have played a game where I'm carrying a spellbook and I can bash someone over the head with it. And look at this! Enemies killed by this weapon are frozen! And look! They shatter! The attention to detail in this game is incredible. I love the weapon selection in Mohrta. They made a concerted effort for every gun to feel different. And I imagine some players will think, well, I hate this gun, I'll never use it. That's happened to me. Even in the best of shooters, the pinnacle of the genre, you can't please everyone. But Mohrta has a solution for that, at least. Melt those suckers down. A quick visit to Igoro at the Metronexus and you can turn that weapon into free strange ore. Not a bounty, admittedly, but maybe enough to upgrade a weapon you do like. Great idea. Truthfully, the weapons from the Molten levels were not gelling with me on my first playthrough, nor any of the melee weapons beside the starter sword, so I scrapped them and used the ore to upgrade the ones I did love. And as I hinted earlier, upgrades are not always straight damage increases. They can unlock entirely new features for your weapons, or multiply its special effects. Weapons are grouped into the dimensions you find them in, so hitting 1 on your keyboard will always cycle between the revolver and the bastard. Hitting 2 will cycle through the trench gun, bone riddler and the hive launcher, so on for 3 and 4. It's a neat idea and I have no complaints. My only wish would be to have an option in the menu to switch that to ammo types. 2 for blue ammo, 3 for yellow, 4 for red. There is also a weapon wheel you can open by hitting X, which really lets you see just how many guns there are from the size of it. The ammo system encourages you to hold on to 1 weapon from each ammo type, and each colour represents what that ammo does. Your revolver holds blue rounds. Think of blue as standard ammunition, sidearm bullets.
I like the yellow ones.
Oh my god.
Yellow is what I'd call punch ammo. Think shotgun shells, syringe fuel. These weapons tend to be powerful with smaller mag or clip capacity. Green is go.
So I know to go ahead and shut up about it.
Think speedy, fast. Green gun go brr. Red is heavy. You're not going to carry around many of these bad boys. This is your hive launcher. A single shot is meant to say goodbye to a group of enemies or take a chunk out of a boss. Strange ore is the material required to upgrade weapons and armor, and it's dotted throughout the dimensions, in hidden chests and from rare special enemies. There isn't enough strange ore to upgrade everything, and this is a good design choice, I feel. It leans into players having favourites, upgrading the weapons that they want the most, while also making choices matter. So, with all that being said, what are you shooting at? I don't want to spoil the enemy design too much, but let me go into detail for the first few levels. These walking bone chimes are melee only, and while I start off by shooting them, I quickly realise that I can save ammo by using the sword. Some enemies are melee only, and these guys are designed to be cannon fodder. Slow and easy to deal with. This is balanced out by the charging bone balls peppered about the levels. These guys are always sleeping when you first encounter them. Once they get out of bed, however, their charge is brutal, and I'm the one in for a rude awakening. Eventually you'll encounter skeletal priests, and they have a ranged attack, but here is what I really like. They can reanimate fallen skeletons, so you're encouraged to prioritize killing the priests, and rewarded for using your sword against the bone chime minions, because if the priest just raises them back up, that's wasted ammo. I appreciate that the enemies don't just present different threats to the player, but also interact between each other like this. This is a good time to mention friendly fire as well. Enemies can hit each other with ranged attacks, and some enemies detonate or crystallize on death. These explosions not only damage you if you're too close, but enemies too, meaning careful timing can trigger a chain reaction of enemy explosions. Then there are these insects who burrow underground, creating a trail of displaced soil so you can see where they're headed. They burst out and after a brief wind-up, will spit an attack at you in a cone in front of them. That's great, but what's even better is this is similar to the spit attack used by a boss later in the level. Then there are the humming sects who try to pierce you with their lance-like mouths, and acid-spitting flying insects who buzz around, desperately trying to avoid you getting a lock on them. That's not all, there are demon commandos, jester archers, and hellish robots. The variety of enemies in Mohrta is quite staggering. I would say the hitboxes were great, all things considered. While I like to think I'm a crack shot, I'm obviously not. Fuck's sake. But I might wager the fatty launcher robots could have used a more generous hitbox. Again, anecdotal, and it's hard to be sure, but I swear I hit some shots that didn't register. Besides that, the hitboxes felt good to me. Hello, it's me from the future. I left this in because I like to show how easy it is to get things wrong. I genuinely thought it was a hitbox issue, but my footage told a different story. At one point, the shot is so close, I mean look, here is the precise frame where I fire beneath the tiny bend in the robot's arm and hit the wall at the back. A gap so small, I think anyone would swear that was a solid hit. So it's not a hitbox issue, the hitboxes are amazing, fantastic job Scumhead and Ociel. This is also a good time to mention the AI and pathfinding, and the AI is pretty good. There are enemies that close the distance to apply pressure, enemies that back off to give themselves room and make themselves smaller targets, and enemies that move quickly, be it in the air or beneath the ground. I love the broom demons. The brilliant subversion of these loincloth-wearing demonic entities is that they attack and move like a commando team. They signal orders, they rush you and fire fast-moving projectiles while throwing grenades. Some enemies have multiple moves, special melee attacks, and they all boast some sort of unique feature, even if not all of them pose the same challenge to take down. Their attack patterns make sense for the type of creature that they are, even if you have no idea what the fuck you're looking at. I don't believe they can open doors, which is kind of a shame, but then again there were times I was very grateful they couldn't. The pathfinding is where they fall short. It's absolutely fine for the most part, and I didn't encounter problems in 95% of the game. But every now and then you'll find an enemy trapped on a ledge or unable to cross a threshold, like there's an invisible force holding them back.
Oh my god, stop, bro, I'm stuck. Can you...
Please understand, these clips are cherry-picked out of over a dozen hours of footage. It still does a good job, especially with those burrowing insects. I was very impressed that they only got tripped up once. There is one instance I'll talk about later in a spoiler-heavy segment, but the short story is the pathfinding is good. However, you will absolutely notice when it trips up. There's no getting around it. Quite literally, because it's a pathfinding issue. The game is very clever with its enemy placement, and it definitely knows how to use what it has effectively. Enemies themselves are creepy, and it doesn't rely on jump scares. Mohrta is more about unnerving you, but when it does try to catch you out, it succeeds. I left my mic in after a call, and usually there's nothing for it to pick up because I'm sitting alone playing a video game. That is, until Mohrta. Oh, fuck off! The journal screen is a beautiful example of good user experience. Rather than have a dozen floating numbers or waypoints on screen, I can keep track of my strange ore, doll buttons, mana crystals, completed quest stages, found quest items, retrieved dimension stones, current ammo count, and current purchased armor upgrades. All of it just by hitting J, when your Mohrta will pull out a scroll and seamlessly open it up for us to read. Everything I need to know is on one screen. One. And it's only visible when I pull up the journal. Absolutely none of this information is relevant in a fight or when I'm actively moving through the world. I only need to see it when I open my journal. Why can't more games get this right? You know what, I'm going to go off on one here, sorry about that. Oh wow, wonder what's in here. What's in this tent? Oh, I wonder. What's down this hole? What's through this door? Is that an ice cream cone? I spent ages just looking at things in this game. If you're seeking a game to blitz through, you can absolutely just nuke your way through Mohrta, but I don't think that's the best experience.
Hey everybody, an old man's talking.
Mohrta isn't a McShooter where you're sprint sliding to the next radio tower to unlock 1/5 of a scope attachment.
Try adding an illuminated scope to your Z93, a reflex sight to your MP5.
It's an artisanal wine. The sort of wine your colonists spend years on. Inside that cask it sits while outside wars rage. Seasons pass. Life blooms. And then it's ready. And you don't just chug it down with a packet of crisps, you're not a barbarian on a battle pass. You take your time, you savour the world around you. That's Mohrta.
And this Chateau LeBlanc 68 is supposed to be served slightly chilled.
All that being said, I'm not a snob. I take my wine like the ancient Greeks, with water, which offends people I really would not care to know anyway. And some battle passes, I mean, you know, they're built different. What can I say? I'm a hypocrite and I know it. Let nobody tell you how to enjoy what you enjoy. My long meandering point is that Mohrta is a work of art and the pacing reflects that. I appreciate its refusal to be anything it isn't. It sets out to be a good shooter with some mechanical complexity within the confines of that genre, set amongst a world with an atmosphere that seduces you, and it does it at its own pace. Mission accomplished completely, 100%. Man alive, I can't tell you how nice it is to play a game that came out in 2025 without achievements. No annoying pop-ups telling me I beat the first boss. I know I beat the first boss. I was there. The questing and exploration is how it's meant to be. No fucking waypoints sending me somewhere. Just a gun, my boots, and a marketable plushie. If that self-indulgent rant brought a smile to your face, please consider checking out my Patreon. You can support me from £1 a month or just join for free. A true and heartfelt thanks to my supporters. Thank you guys. I normally find bosses in first-person shooters quite disappointing, to be honest. Not so in Mohrta. I didn't face one boring boss or one that pulled bullshit mechanics. The slight exception to that was the Demon Princess, a great boss who obeys line of sight when I hide behind these pillars to heal up. She will try to get around the pillars to shoot me, so that isn't the issue. The issue is the robots she summons can fire straight through the pillars. A minor complaint, and even then, not with the boss, just a slight problem with an ad. You ever get that feeling when you're enjoying a boss and you're lamenting that the boss's health pool is too small because you want to have fun with that boss for a bit longer? I got that feeling a couple of times in Mohrta. Maybe it's because some bosses felt easier than others, or because the upgraded weapons really do deal more damage. It's a personal feeling, but I'm mentioning it. I have got to talk for a second about one boss with a sad bug. Spoilers again, so I've added a chapter to skip to. Okay, so Mommy. Sorry, Mother, script error. Mother is a dope-ass boss with, again, her tits out. This game speaks to me, and her moveset is good so I won't spoil it. However, she can at some point initiate a spin attack. She just starts whirring around like a blender, and if she hits you, she only does minor damage and stops, and stands there for a moment before resuming the fight. Which is great, because it's like she's got dizzy from spinning. However, if she doesn't hit you and you keep strafing, she will never stop spinning. You can keep this up forever. I tried on my second playthrough. Forget Dizzy Mommy, if she keeps this up it'll be Vommy Mommy.
It's important to mention that these fluids are highly contagious.
This is the one instance, however. In every other case, the boss fights were fun, exciting, and some were truly tense, down to my last doll button. I want to talk about the mechanics, hell, I want to gush about all the bosses. I write this sentence after I just beat the Dread King, and what a fight that was! I will not spoil the mechanics, don't worry, but I want to say how I was drawing a tarot card to buff myself and got distracted by the fact that this tarot card had a big boobed witch on it, and that got me killed. I warped out to upgrade my equipment, and look, now my tarot cards have a cone attack where I throw 3 cards instead of 1. I love this game. Some are simplistic, some are classic boss staples, and others are just an indulgence in creativity. When my only real complaint is that the boss needs more health, that means I had fun. And that's truly anecdotal and honestly quite egotistical to say that, but I loved the boss fights. The final boss is just perfect. I love that for massive area attacks there is a telegraphed animation to let you know it's coming, but there's an instance where you can't see where a boss will reappear to deliver a raid-wide attack. So there is an audio cue signalling it instead. Genius. Ammo management isn't really a concern throughout the game, as most enemies drop one form or another, but in boss fights it's actually quite important, as rarely will you be able to resupply. The game is designed well enough that it has the Leon Kennedy effect.
Hasta luego.
You know how Leon often gets locked into a room with God knows what and he always has just enough ammo to deal with it? The same is true for Mohrta. If you find a room with a shit ton of green beads, there's gonna be a boss up next. So it does make sure you have enough before that fight begins, yet you're still punished for wasting ammo during that boss fight. Rarely will you get chance to resupply, and you may be forced to resort to a melee weapon if you keep missing. I want to highlight something in particular here. I've already mentioned move telegraphing, but just to explain in case you're unfamiliar, this is when an enemy is about to perform an attack or something else you need to be wary of. To give the player time to ready themselves, there is an animation before the actual move takes place. Think of it like winding up a punch. Before the impact, you see the arm go back. This is essential in any enemy, and I usually compare this sort of thing to Bayonetta and Elden Ring because they're both very good at this. And so is Mohrta. It's easy to recognise when an enemy is about to do their signature move. Timing your dodge is another thing, but the game is giving you the tools to get good. The bosses are no different, whether it's a huge skeleton winding up to swing a big fuck off sword, or a hive queen spitting acid at you while she pole dances.
I should have been a pole dancer.
It's all there. The dodge mechanic isn't just there to look cool. The invulnerability frames it grants you are essential. Some mechanics require you to weave jumps in with the dodge, and the game doesn't explicitly state this, but it hints at it by creating ground impact waves. There is an exception to this, and it isn't a boss, it's a regular enemy. These weird floating machine things look so good. Unfortunately, it's really unclear as to how they actually damage you. They definitely create an explosion at where they're aiming, but I'm not sure how they even work, and this set me back considerably in the tower, so I made sure to just take no chances the next time around. After defeating Julie, that big titty werewolf, we meet Avlan, or at least a projection of them. This is who we've been sent to hunt down. He reveals he loosed the strange upon the town of Kozanoda, stating he wished to open a doorway for us to be pulled into the Metronexus, and that the extraplanar bandits were an unintended consequence. He says that the strange should be befriended rather than destroyed. I like this little interaction. It hints early that Avlan is not the villain we were sent to hunt down, and that he may be trying to show us a truth, or at the very least, show us his way of thinking. But it also highlights that he may be wrong. Our masters want the strange eradicated, and by his own admission, his attempt to merely open a path for us resulted in the death of an entire town. The strange is unpredictable and perhaps uncontrollable. I'll chat more about the story later, but I wanted to show my appreciation for this. I want to rewind and talk about the werewolf honkers for a second because I feel the need to bring up that there is some low poly nudity in this game, probably seen it by now, and I don't mean suns out, guns out topless, at least one boss has no clothes at all. But it's mostly used to be more unsettling than anything else. Think that weird art horror film your friend really wants you to watch. There is certainly nothing sexually explicit. I think if you've seen my videos you'll know I'm no prude, but it just surprised me, is all. As for the horror aspects, despite the low poly visuals, the disturbing stuff is really well done and quite unsettling. There was at least one moment when my skin started to crawl. I couldn't wait to get out of the weeping room. Where level design is concerned, some of it is just outstanding when you consider the limitations of the GZ Doom engine, and almost every space has something that makes it interesting to navigate. Look at this. This giant skeleton with his outstretched hand so you can climb up him to progress. Do you know why this is here? Because it's fucking cool. The molten caverns are a mix of winding tunnels and open spaces. This is broken up by large open cliffs featuring narrow walkways. In these breakpoints, there are very few enemies. The game is lulling you into a sense of security before your eventual return to the elemental riddled caverns. Then there is the tower. No, not that episode of Stargate.
How about you just call me John?
I mean this level in the game, which is essentially an endurance test, where you must climb through progressively more challenging floors with a shortcut back to the ground level opening every so often. There are also various traps around the level, and I'm glad to say that the broom factory passes my safety inspection. The Festival of War and the Old Battlefield. In my mind, these are one big level split into two, and so I'd say they're the peak of what Mohrta does best. %50 open map exploration with multiple routes, and 50% linear shooter but with interesting spaces. And I'm purposefully showing the most boring parts of these maps because you need to explore the festival for yourself. I do have two complaints about the level design. The first is there are a lot of invisible walls. It's forgivable, but for a game that had me feeling more immersed than motorboating, they really took me out of the experience. I can forgive it because it's such a minor quibble. The other complaint is truly subjective. Some levels felt too short, but if they were any longer, the impact of those levels would be ruined. I'm saying they're too short because I enjoyed them so much. I didn't want this game to end, basically. This isn't a gameplay runtime concern, and I don't think it's too short in that regard. I've said too short so much that I'm having some personal memories come up, so I'll just say that my first playthrough ran at nearly 14 hours. Mohrta is a slower paced game. There are segments of the levels designed with no enemies at all. Some rooms are empty, playing on your loneliness. Others are open spaces with happy ambient creatures. Others are stressful, with explosive barrels and fast-paced shootouts. The level and encounter design has a bit of everything, and it's best enjoyed when you take your time. I'm going to do a spoiler-heavy bit here, so skip ahead to the next timestamp if you wish. There are two levels called the Osseous Cliffs and the Plague Mire, two of the most atmospheric levels in the game. And sandwiched between those levels is Dahvin Manor. When I say Resident Evil and Fatal Frame, I'm not thinking about the mechanics, I mean the ambience. Everything about this level design is perfect. The staircases that fade into black, the use of multiple floors and tight corridors. There aren't many instances of you need the blue keycard in Mohrta, but Dahvin Manor is the exception by design. It's a small level, but many of the passageways are locked off. You have to collect keys locked behind other keys, which creates all this wonderful backtracking. This is to say nothing of the ambient sound, the creaking floorboards, the way the game plays on that claustrophobic feeling of being in an old manor. And the brief respite you get to spend outside. This level also ends with that fully nude boss, which I have to censor. Sorry guys. But what I can tell you is that they animated the walk cycle jiggle. Remember I said I'd talk about one pathfinding issue in particular? Here it is. I have to talk about the Pennywheel Reanimator. It's one of the most creative enemies I've ever seen. They can't attack or fight back in any way. They exist solely to quickly ride to corpses and reanimate them. So you've just been all through this creepy mansion and killed everything, and then they spawn throughout the level, riding around through all the doors you've just unlocked, and they're resurrecting everything as quickly as possible. And I believe that was the intention here. It breaks my heart to say this, because that is such a cool idea, but they trip up on everything. I assume this is just the way the engine is. I played through this game twice because I loved it so much, and it wasn't a one-off. These Pennywheel Reanimators are just buggy. Look past this. I beseech you, look past it. Exploring the levels is rewarded by finding upgrade materials in areas off the beaten path. They're not challenging to find, but that's part of the point. They reward being thorough, not eagle-eyed. Exploring also opens shortcuts back to areas, so if you wish to return to the level later, say to look for a strange ore you might have missed, you can do just that. The shortcuts range in creativity from the classic lowering a ladder technique to blowing up a cavern wall. Finally, some exploration is required to locate keys or flip levers to open the path forward so you can progress. But the game isn't overburdened with this, and you're never stuck looking for that one key you can't find. Often you'll have a hub room with a locked door and rooms off of that hub which contain the keys. My favourite design for this is in the Mausoleum, where we enter into a hub room with 5 doors, one of which is locked. The other 4 doors open into very different rooms. If we pick any one of these rooms, we will find a lever, and flicking it will tell us somewhere a flame has lit. But we don't have to go back to the hub room. If we keep exploring that area, we'll find a path to take us to the next room, because the level is designed well enough that all 4 areas connect together. In fact, there is this fantastic bit where you can reach a balcony overlooking the hub room, and look, you can see the 2 fires lit in the statue's hands from the 2 levers I just activated. I really like this. It tells us we need 4 fires to open the door, and it never makes us go back to the hub to move to the next lever. There are basic quests throughout the game. They're usually tied to the dimension they're in, so it's almost impossible to miss stages. The NPCs are good, and while you can't speak, a fact pointed out by other NPCs, I appreciate the interactions. Completing quests can be as simple as talking to an NPC or collecting items for someone. They reward you for completing them in one form or another, but not always with a material reward. Questing will impact your ability to unlock endings, however, doing the quests is entirely optional. You can blitz through on your mission to hunt down Avlan, or stop and have a chat with everyone. Mohrta's gameplay loop is simple, with some emergent gameplay that elevates it further. The combat ranges from Sunday stroll to fighting for my fucking life, with a stockpile of weapons and a system that allows you to cut out the ones you don't want while improving the ones you do. A horde of different creatures and bosses that range from vanilla dungeon boss to pure creativity. It's honestly a joy to play through. You can kill demons with a pack of cards, for crying out loud. What more do I need to say? Nice. Well, actually a little bit more. On to the story and characters. The story of Mohrta is simple on the surface. You are a Generation 7 Hayward, a corpse reanimated with machinery and sent to hunt down Avlan, a first generation model who has gone wonko. But when you reach Kozanoda, instead of Avlan, you find nothing but bodies and bandits. While there, you're drawn into a bustling hub that exists between dimensions. It is from here your hunt for Avlan takes a far grander turn. This is the story of the Mohrta that strode into the Metronexus, but does he bring law and order, or something else? Dun, da, 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 there. I don't want to chat too much about the story because it's a recent release, but I enjoyed the narrative. The story of Mohrta is grand in stakes, but small in scale. And what I mean by that is it takes you all the way up to a universe-changing choice, a decision that will affect the lives of countless dimensions forever. But not before you help this dude find something to eat. The individual stories and quests never meet the same scale as the hunt for Avlan. These smaller, more personal stories are what informs you for your final decision, and help set the stage for why Avlan might be right and why he may be wrong. My only true gripe with the story would be that I'd have liked at least one more interaction with Avlan before the final confrontation. Purely my own preference, but I also understand why that doesn't happen. So this isn't a complaint, more like I've already said about Mohrta, I enjoyed it so much I wanted a bit more. A bit Mohrta. As you journey, you can help the people you encounter or completely ignore them. The game will reflect this in a limited capacity. The story will wrap up in one of 4 endings. Some are decided purely by what you choose at the end of the game, but a couple require choices made earlier. I like that because it gives the player a choice even if they just want to speed run to the finale, while giving other players more choices because they've played the game to its fullest. Again, I'm keeping details on the story brief, but what about how it's told? The storytelling is better than I expected. I particularly liked the cutscenes. They had that nice retro feel to them, but there is so much charm and heart in these. I found myself grinning at the funny ones, and I'm not saying I was bawling my eyes out, but they're appropriately emotional. There are even some boss intro cinematics that again hint at a greater story outside of what we, the player, are experiencing without explicitly telling you what is happening. Your character, the Gen 7, is silent. This is both made fun of by NPCs and a nice way to handle how you influence the world, through actions rather than words, which suits the narrative as well, as it's implied you are both a blank slate but also not. It's as though what made you an individual in life was stripped away, but not quite. And if you play through the game thoroughly, you may find some answers as to who you are. As for the other characters, they're memorable and distinct. Some are not likeable from the get-go, but it's intentional and again handled nicely as the game progresses. The incidental denizens of the Metronexus have various lines to say, and these won't change throughout the course of the game. There are a few Metronexus NPCs that do have more dialogue, however. The upgrade vendors, a couple of others, and Elder Moke. From what I can tell, they basically have the same set of lines from the start of the game until you've completed a few dimensions, and then again before your final confrontation with Avlan. So long as you check in with the Metronexus vendors, it's going to be hard to miss the dialogue. When they do talk, they dig deeper into their histories and personalities, what they think of you and your actions. But their stories also help flesh out the world further, as they often give details about where they came from and what inevitably happened to their home. It's nice that they have character at all, and the other citizens refer to them, which helps make the world feel alive. Their presence is noted because they're important figures both in the player's progression and the Metronexus ecosystem. I don't need to have a branching dialogue tree. It's nice to have anything with some soul put into it. The world building is rich and colourful. The dimensions you'll encounter each tell their own story in the world, and there are no massive text dumps, no codex entries. You can't even read this stone tablet. You see it. It's explained and implied. Sometimes characters will deliver lore to you and it's kept short and sweet. You never have that moment where you're thinking, look, I don't care, I have to stop the Reapers. The Outer Wars are mentioned several times, and you can tell they're a landmark point in history for the universe. Less Clone Wars, more War in Heaven. It was a calamitous event. It serves as a talking point to set up the current world and story. Ironically, it's what was originally intended by the Star Wars scene. We fought in the Clone Wars.
You fought in the Clone Wars?
Yes. I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
However, The Outer Wars is a movie I might actually want to see.
The Jundland wastes are not to be travelled lightly.
One of my favourite parts of the world building is how every world has unique ambient creatures. They all look familiar enough to be recognisable for what they are, but strange enough to be different.
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
The little birds, moo rafts with their bells, the bunrals hopping about the ice. And by now I think I should say I have zero idea what any of these creatures are called. Bunrels, splitterpus, hummingsect. I made some of these up because the game doesn't tell you what they're called. I have no problem with that. Not every game needs a bestiary. They're birds, they're worms. Yes, I'd love to know all about bunral digging habits because I do obsess over that sort of thing. I love rabbits. But also, it doesn't matter. The strange is a constant presence throughout the game. It's a force that changes, corrupts, and ultimately undoes all those who would try to wield it. But it's suggested multiple times that it might be something to coexist with rather than confront. In one instance, we're told the history of how the Plague Mire came to be, and it's left open as to whether or not mortals were corrupted, or they brought that corruption upon themselves. So is the strange good or bad, or simply a force of nature that knows both? It is good to have elements of your world that can't be explained away. The question of whether the strange is a corrupting force or merely amplifies the corruption of those who use it is something that is never truly answered, but suggested to the player. Horror thrives in the unexplained, and I'm so happy to say Mohrta gives enough information, backstory and explanation, but never falls into the trap of explaining away all of the mystery. The workings of the universe are real, but cosmic and unquantified. In fact, it shows that attempts to quantify it do not end well. The story of Mohrta is not overly wordy or filled with endless dialogue, yet it's made up of moments where the pace slows so conversation may flow. Some of the world-building plot and quests are cryptic at first, until you start to put the pieces together. Not everything has or needs an answer, but threads that do so are tied up nicely. So much of the world building is done visually. You can see what happened. The stories are there in front of you without ever turning a page. You feel like an extraplanar detective going to different dimensions and finding out what went wrong. The game tries not to create an absolutely exhaustive library of lore for every dimension, but rather make sure the corner you get to visit is packed with uniqueness. There is enough to flesh the levels out, and I enjoyed its storytelling. I want to talk more about the story and characters, I really do. For fuck's sake, there is a window in the final level that I want to talk about. A window! That's how excited I am about the world building of Mohrta, but I will just say that the Dark Tower is fantastic, in that it resolves the main story while posing new questions woven into the very art and level design of the tower. Let's move on to the sound and music. I've said before that the opening or signature theme is how you seduce a player, and Mohrta's signature piece is what convinced me I had to play this game. From the moment I heard this music in the trailer, I knew I wanted in. The way it ramps up with more instruments joining in and a beautiful bell-like choir. I also really like how the main title music takes a lot of the same beats, albeit with softer, gentler tones. I won't spoil the boss fight, but Penultima is just an absolute blast. And after this you have Godhead from the subsequent fight, and the way that turns up as the battle progresses into gothic techno majesty. The variety of tracks is just obscene. But is it any wonder when you have pieces of music with titles like Whore Princess and Infinite Party Apparatus in the same track list? Whore Princess sounds like a great band name, by the way. But I don't know if I'd wear their t-shirt, people might get the wrong idea. Music is used very effectively in boss fights and in world exploration, as in it isn't always pumping tunes 24/7. For a lot of the levels there are nice ambient tracks until the music comes to kick in, which is better. Mohrta isn't a game that needs a constant backing track. It's got rich, deep ambience, punctuated by music ranging from relaxing to tense. There's this immense shift in mood when you've been navigating the broom factory, just the sound of clankers and machinery, and then a demonic announcement comes over the PA system, which is just genius. Then, all of a sudden, the music kicks in. The whole mood shifts. Perfect. Then there are other dimensions where the music is a constant companion. It's unnerving, but always gives a chance for the ambience to come through with occasional pauses in the music. When I hear this piece, I think snowfall, ice, winter. It has all those hallmarks of musical design. Every single piece fits the dimension it's in thematically, and then the level, and then the mood it's trying to create. It's a trifecta of criteria, and it meets every single one. As I understand it, the musical score was composed by Scumhead, who has uploaded the entire soundtrack to YouTube, so you can listen to it there. What a Chad. I found myself sitting up at night listening to the Mohrta soundtrack. Not the most hinged behaviour, I'm actually quite intense behind the scenes, but when I review games, that's what happens when I like the music. As for the voice acting, 10 out of 10. As you can tell, there isn't very much, but listen to this little guy. Just from the energy and pitch, you know he really does make good soup. From what I can tell, all major NPCs have unique interaction sounds. But besides some very special circumstances, the voice acting is more flavour than anything else. The active sounds are all fantastic, with the sound of every weapon being distinct and impactful. They sound exactly how they should. Light and floaty. Heavy and slow. Pinpoint and deadly. The sounds fit the weapon types, and for the stranger weapons they have a rulebook all of their own, but they sound good. Every enemy makes a recognisable sound, but the humming sect may be my favourite. The wheezing of the bone chime boar as it sleeps, and the way the bone chime soldiers rattle, when you hear them coming in the dark but you can't see them yet. What an effect! I really love the enemy sound design. Everything sounds distinct, and yet there is familiarity between similar creatures. The ambient sound really draws you into the dimensions of Mohrta. The bird song of the garden grave. Now that all the people are dead, things are peaceful here. Idyllic even. But something stirs beneath the surface. Something bustling and alive. The Plaguemire's constant rain and eerie environment. Listen how it changes when we venture underground. A sharp transition, but it's appreciated. Hell, even the opening of Kozanoda. You know there's been a horrific slaughter here. Families are dead, their bodies burning in a pile. But the world keeps turning. The sound of the wind, the birds in the sky, and the occasional ring of a cowbell. It's eerie and yet peaceful. I think the sound and music of Mohrta is truly impressive, and it successfully captures that alien, strange and wonderful feeling of going into another dimension. There are some pieces of music that are truly unforgettable, and some sounds you wish to never hear again. I think graphics are a really boring thing to judge a game on, so I'm doing visuals and spectacle, and that's how dazzling and interesting it is to me within the style of the game. However, I will mention technical issues with the visuals that affect the game negatively, and I've already done that with the lantern beast lighting not hitting all planes equally. The low resolution textures and low polygon models are part of the style, and don't confuse low res with low effort or a lack of detail. The detail in Mohrta comes from meticulous design, not pixel count. There are noticeable instances of repeated textures on certain walls, but again, there is almost always detailing to cover this up, or the stark flat wall is there just to unnerve you. Every single environment model is beautiful, and its textures are good. The level of detail added throughout the levels is fantastic. All these incidental models really help sell the world. Every place has its own story to tell. It does this in its appearance. I can't stress how much I loved walking the plains of Mohrta. The Plague Mire is a monument to ambience. It's just amazing. This foggy, strange warped swamp that was once a beautiful aspen forest. You can see the last remnants of those trees in the far hillside, but even those are slowly changing into rotten mushrooms. The trees in every dimension are unique. Remember, these aren't just different planets. They're entirely different dimensions of reality. Even if they're similar, there had to be some sort of visual distinctiveness between the flora. I can tell you whether it's a fir tree from Kozanoda or an aspen from the Plague Mire. Every dimension has its own biology and ecosystem, and this is a phenomenal amount of care put into your world. The lighting completes the mood. Mohrta is great in that it's not afraid to use bright, even lighting like the set of the Next Generation, but it can also turn on those soft, gentle glows and deep shadows like Star Trek Voyager. The enemies are instantly recognizable, most of them, but not all, just from their silhouette. Well, that's one of the hallmarks of good enemy design. Even the hive enemies, which are naturally similar because they belong to the same hive, they have some sort of design to set them apart. They're all well modelled, textured and animated. Oh, the little animations they do, especially the bosses for their move telegraphing, the snapping of fingers, the reach for the dynamite, and the animations for reloading the weapons, every one has a particular flair to it. I never get tired of watching that trench gun reload, even if it means I'm probably going to die. As for the cutscenes, relatively simplistic animation, but it gets the job done in conveying what's happening. It focuses on starkness rather than fluidity. It's more interested in how a character looks when they stop moving. I can respect that. That's using the limitations of the engine to your advantage, creating these great still images at the end of an animation. The effects are handled well considering the engine. I love that some explosions are physical animated models. It gives the game a style you just don't get with modern games and thousands of particles. When I fire my hive launcher, it makes a visible expanding orb of death. I dig that. Overall, the visuals of Mohrta are a stylistic beast, where instead of polygons, particle effects, and high resolution, the heavy lifting is done by mood, colour, aesthetics, and design. Every dimension is visually distinct, and it's just got so many tightly decorated corners tucked away, in contrast with open expanses of nothingness. It's beautiful. But that's enough yapping, it's summary time, starting with the negatives because I want to end on a positive note. Dodgy lighting when you summon your lantern beast, but only on flat planes above your character, and it's only really noticeable in pitch black areas. There's only a few, but it happens. Pathfinding that functions well for the most part, but when it messes up, you will notice. One or two boss fights that needed to hit a little harder, but even that is personal preference. Look past these things, and you've got a game you can completely immerse yourself in for hours. It's just fun. Can I pronounce Mohrta? No. Can I recommend Mohrta? Yes, hands down. I know it's probably going to get labelled a Souls-like, an indie game, a retro game, a boomer shooter, and that's fine. People like to label things. I'm guilty of making some comparisons in my review. But the truth is, Mohrta stands alone without needing comparisons or to be filed into niche genres. Mohrta is a first-person shooter with challenging gameplay, fun weapons, interesting enemies and locales, enough lore to pull you in but not enough to bore you, enough story to make things matter but not enough to overwhelm, phenomenal music and art, and it's all compressed into this amazingly stylistic game. And I will play it again. Do I think this game is for everyone? No, but that's what's great. It doesn't go for mass appeal. It's got its design brief and sticks to it. There is more soul in Mohrta than most AAA studios, let alone AAA games. But again, it doesn't need that comparison. It's a great game that runs on its own steam. And a lot of tits.
Oh, let's roll! Good thing you shoot better than you drive.
And from just one expression, we all instantly know what Leon's thinking.
Long time no see.
Ada.
Leon, you have to find some way to get inside.